Can you talk about, it sounds like you've obviously been in education for a long time. So have you observed changes in education system kind of as it relates to what we're talking about in terms of increasing pressures, like in the time that you've been an educator?
Yes, there's been a lot of pressure for kids. I have 4 children, and there's a 10-year span. So my daughter is my oldest, and and then I have 3 sons. And just in their academic record, my daughter was a very strong student, and she did really well in school and was an AP student, and she worked really hard. And my son, who was my last student, actually had a better grade point average, better test scores, and he did not get into the same schools that she got into. So he had the fewest choices at the end of the day. I saw that the rigor and the pressures got harder as the years went on. And so that's just as a parent looking at it. The competition seems to get harder. There's no comparison to when I was a student. I finally got to go to UCLA in my old age, but I know that was a dream of mine when I was a child, and my parents were not educated. My dad had an 8th grade education and my mom an 11th. And so I went to Pepperdine because they thought that was safe. But I could have gone anywhere. And I wasn't a straight A student by any stretch. I had to work really hard in school, but you just had to be a decent student and take the SAT, and you could have gone to any UC at a very reasonable price. And it's just not that way anymore. It's hard to get a seat, and that's taking, college courses starting your junior year, AP courses, doing very well, taking the SAT multiple times, getting tutors and all those things. And to me, it's a socioeconomic gap and a gap in capital. How much how much capital does your family have? I'm in the system. It has nothing to do with socioeconomics because we're very education rich, tuition poor, but we have the capital. We know how to navigate the system, and so my children are fortunate that way. Not everyone has that. I didn't have that as a child. I had to just kind of fumble my way to figure out how to get to college. I was first generation, and so not everything is created equal. And the kids are under a tremendous amount of pressure. I would say my kids pretty much burned out by their junior year because even in middle school, they were taking algebra and geometry. They took the SAT starting in the 7th grade through the Johns Hopkins class. They were GATE students. So, and I don't know if I put that pressure on them. They would tell you I did, because they had aspirations. They wanted to go to college, or at least that was the expectation in our house. And to get there, that's what you have to do. So I watched the race to nowhere when my son was in 8th grade, and it broke my heart. There were kids committing suicide because they had gotten their first B. And so I came home, and my youngest, I said, "You don't have to take AP and honors classes. This doesn't seem healthy anymore." And he said, "Are you crazy? I want to go to a great college. I want to, study business or engineering. Of course I have to take those classes." He thought I was crazy at this point because he saw his brother go to UCLA and his sister go to Berkeley, and his other brother went to San Diego State, and he wanted to do that too. And so he thought now I was the crazy one. Yes, they're under an incredible amount of pressure. Their frontal lobes are still children, and we're getting them to study like they're young adults. And in other nations that do better than we do on the PISA and on all these exams, they don't do it this way. Their children play. They learn to be creative. They grow and develop like young people. And they end up in the long run maybe doing better. So I'm not sure what we do, but as a parent, you want them to be independent, be able to have a family someday, own a home, have a good job, and be happy. So I think as parents, you just don't know what to do, so it's hard.
What did it look like for your kids when they burnt out? Like, what did that mean?
Grumpy, the peer pressure of, I mean, there's nothing more brutal than the wait between the college application and the acceptance letter. The last one I remember the best, he's a college freshman right now, and not getting into places that he thought were his backup schools when he had I think he had a 4.4 or 4.5, and not getting into places that his siblings got into with a lower grade point average.
Like what kind of schools did he not get into?
He didn't get into UCLA. He didn't get into UC Santa Barbara. And he was where his siblings got into. Not only did they get into those schools, but into the honors programs into those schools. He was embarrassed, like, because then you have to go to school and, and your friends are asking. It's heart-wrenching as a parent because you're just like, I don't know what to tell you. You did, and in his generation, people that were trying to go to these elite colleges or these competitive colleges, most parents middle-class parents hire people to help with the essay, the SAT tutoring, the FAFSA. I mean, that's just what you do.
How much does that cost about?
It's about $4,000 to $5,000. And I'm sure that's like in my world. I'm sure people pay 10, 20, right? And my point is sometimes kids get into these places that they have no business being in. It's almost like if your kid here is in the highest math class and they're getting tutored along the way, maybe that's a message that they're placed too high. So, and that is a problem in our system right now. Here's another example. Joe is in Calc BC, which is the highest math class, as a junior. And we're in back to school night, the first few minutes, and the teacher is telling the parents suggestions of who to call for tutoring. And I'm like, you've just now not leveled the playing field. If you're a junior in the top math class in the district, no one should need a tutor. But if everyone starts getting a tutor, everyone needs a tutor. So I would tell Joe, let's get a tutor.
So what was it like when your kids got to college? Like, did it meet the expectation? Did it feel worth it? And now, now that Catters has graduated and she's established, like, looking backwards, what do they think? Like, would they have done it different? How did, did
Yes.
it live up?
Okay, so Catherine went to Berkeley, and she was in high school. She had a peer group that was very successful. They enjoyed studying together. School was easy for her. She was an AP student, perfect math SAT score. She barely survived Berkeley. It was so rigorous and hard. She did not think she was prepared. She says she wished she would have chose an easier school. So that's kind of like what I was saying.
But who is prepared for that school then? If
Exactly.
she's not,
If
who is
she's
it teaching
not,
to?
exactly.
Just about the idea that a kid can just focus on academics, because it seems like that's not even the case. Like, they don't just want the straight A student. You've got to have the whole package.
And mine did. Joe was in ASB. He was in track. He was in Viking Nation, which is this cheering thing. He did a thing with special ed students. He had a job for a while. Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But kind of, I'm okay with that in a sense because, but you have to do what you're passionate about, and it's probably why my other kids got into better schools, because like Catherine had a gold award and started a tutoring thing and was president of Science Olympiad, and Frankie was president of the Asian Club and president of Science Olympiad, where Joe didn't have leadership. They want you to be a leader of something. And so maybe transcript wise and leadership wise. It's tough, and it's tough to do that in a big high school to really find your place. But if you're just a student and all you do is study, I don't know how healthy that is. However, if you want to be top of your class in an engineering big UC school, I don't know how you do that and go to football games and go to parties and have friends and come home on the weekends. Mine couldn't do that and have super good grades.
What do you think though? So a lot of what we've talked about is for kids who have the ultra high expectations. So what happens anymore to, let's even just say, to an average kid? Like, I would feel like if the expectation is so high, you're turning off a lot of middle kids who are just going to be like, I can never do that, and they're
Right.
just going to check out entirely. Like, what do you think happens there?
Right. Well, we have a really great, like Saddleback, we have a great community college here, and most of our district kids go there. What I like to do is try to inspire the kids to prepare for the 4-year, like make that your goal, and I think some of them prepare for the 2-year.
What do you think the chicken and the egg is in terms of school?
Well, I think, and we studied this a little bit in my program, I think they take a lot of foreign kids and they get a lot more money for it. I think they take a lot of out-of-state kids and they get a lot more money for it. So I think our California kids, there's just less seats. Like, I think, like for Joe's situation, I think there were less spots in the engineering program so that he had less of a chance. The next year they opened up more. I think, a white girl versus a white middle class boy, like all those kind of factors play into it. And I think that's unfortunate. I think, if you're Californian trying to get to a California school, like I think, my nephew's going to go to Oregon. Well, Oregon likes that. You're California going to Oregon, that's more money. An Oregon kid coming to California, that's more money. Unfortunately, the schools need money. They're under-supported.
I mean, I feel like I've asked this question a couple of times, and I don't think I'm. So if, like, I just kind of feel like, again, there's going to be a lot of kids that feel marginalized. Like, have you noticed, or even probably more at the high school level, of kids, sorry, Lord, that are just kind of checking out, that they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's just
give
all
up.
too much, so
Yes.
screw it all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna,
Oh yeah,
like,
we have an LOP list, which is the loss of privilege list, where anyone that has a 2.0 or below. And I'll be honest, we look at that list and they all have a story. And it's, some of the problems are way above what we can, this one's homeless. We call that like if, they're renting a room, or this one, they have English language issues. This one's depressed. This one cuts themselves. It's like the problems are so big. So yes, they have those issues. And then our 4.0 and success list is huge. It's like the dichotomy. And then there's those kids in the middle, and sometimes they slip through the cracks.
yeah, no, I was kind of wondering too a little bit more about like the kids in the middle, if they're because they feel like I'm never, I can't take 5 AP classes, and so why bother with any of it,
Right. Right. And they slip through the crack.
I think you kind of hit everything that I had questions about.
Okay.
Is there anything else about the topic that we haven't really talked about that you think is important?
No, I mean, my kids would tell you I put a lot of pressure on them. But I didn't feel like I did. And I think I loved my college years and getting to go abroad and living in the I wanted that for them so badly. And I hope they enjoyed that time. It's completely cost prohibited and it's sacrificial, and I hope the pressure and the desire for them to have those experiences and then give them a degree that allows them to now be independent and get jobs and careers that make it so they don't have to live with that. You know what I mean? Not, and I miss them terribly. I hope they now like see that if I didn't think they could do it and they didn't do well in school and they had minimal wage jobs and went to the community college, like what's the alternative? I mean, that's what I keep thinking. Like, what's the alternative? I don't know. It's really hard as a parent. It's really hard. Because you want them to be emotionally healthy. That's the number one thing.